everyone. Welcome back to Crossroads. I'm David Schuster.
And I'm Shayna Stulin in for Michelle McCory. President Trump is drawing more criticism over how he is handling the violence at a white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. On Thursday morning, Trump expressed his sadness over the removal of some Confederate statues.
But believe it or not, some Americans are actually on the president's side. A new poll shows that 55% of Americans disapprove of President Trump's response to Charlottesville, but 34% approve. However, there are a large number of Republicans who approve of the president's message. 67% support his comments about Charlottesville, while 22% of Republicans do not. The poll was conducted by CBS News. Joining us to talk more about the backlash to President Trump's response to the violence in Virginia and the debate over Confederate statues, Michael Grimm, former New York congressman and former FBI agent. Also with us, Ron Nehring, former national spokesman for Ted Cruz for president and a 2014 Republican nominee for lieutenant governor of California. Mr. Grimm, I want to start with you. The way the president has handled this, do you believe he's handled it very well?
Well, listen, I think he has a tough audience. You know, obviously he has an extremely adversarial relationship with the media, and that's a big problem. However, he absolutely, unequivocally denounced these repugnant groups, whether it's the KKK or whether it's any type of white supremacy. He did that. But what's being conflated, I think, is when he talked about the violence on the other side. And that should not be lost. It is important because what we are seeing is a growing more and more violence, whether it's on college campuses or anywhere. Look, they are repugnant groups, these white supremacists, no doubt. But their speech is protected. And if we start using violence to silence them, then our First Amendment is gone. And that's, I think, an important part that should not be missed here. And it doesn't mean we're comparing people to these repulsive, vile groups. It simply means violence isn't the answer to stop their vitriol.
Ron, how about it?
Well, I think it's very important to make clear that there were no good people mixed in with what happened in Charlottesville. You know, if someone came down because they wanted to protest the removal or imminent removal of a statue or so, if someone shows up at a rally and the guy next to you holds a Nazi flag up, you're in the wrong place and you need to take off from there. And if you stay around there, then you're participating in a Nazi rally. And there are no good people who are mixed in this, in this bunch. At the same time, of course, there were people who, of both sides who, came down there looking for trouble. There's no doubt about that. However, we have to be very, very clear, particularly people like the congressman and myself, who are conservatives, who are Republicans. It's very important that we speak with one voice very, very strongly, that these thugs, losers, and hooligans who were down there in Charlottesville, who went down there for racist purposes in order to have a racist rally with their little tiki torches from Home Depot and so on, that these people do not represent the Republican Party, the conservative movement, and they shouldn't even call themselves, quote, alt-right. There's nothing right about these people whatsoever. These are people who want big, racist, government policies that are imported from, Nazi ideology. And we have to speak out very, very firmly and clearly against them so that they do not succeed in trying to attach themselves to the broader mainstream conservative movement in America.
Michael, you are right. There is extremism on the left. Even New York Times, The Atlantic, which are not, Republican papers, have reported on it, although they report that far-right extremist groups are much more violent. But do you think this was the time and place to talk about far-left extremism when a suspected neo-Nazi plowed his car into a group of protesters and killed a woman?
Well, again, extremely, this is a disgusting scenario. And any good person, any American, look, I'm a United States Marine, and I love this country with my heart and soul. But it is those times when people are the most vile creatures on earth that we have to remember the answer to their speech is not violence. I think that's the only point that is being conflated here that the president was trying to say is we have despicable people in our society that we have to deal with by showing that this is ignorance and that the way to ignorance is intelligence, by education. We don't want anyone to follow in their footsteps. But if we allow a mob to show up with baseball bats and sticks to beat them up, then we've already lost, and we've become as bad as, we've become as bad as the problem itself.
But that's
just the point.
But that's one issue. The violence is one issue. The righteousness is another. And Ron, if I hear you correctly, it sounds like you're saying, well, yes, everybody agrees that there perhaps was violence on both sides, but that there's a larger issue at stake here.
There is, and I think that's a very important point to make, in that we have to go further. Because, look, this is a tiny group that does not represent America. They don't represent, anything, beyond their small, sick little band of weirdos, wackos, and, thugs and hooligans. However, what their approach is that of the mosquito. They want to continue to sting and sting and sting and provoke violence and to provoke problems so that they can draw media attention, so that they have an opportunity to expand their numbers by communicating to a broader group of people through the mainstream media. And we should not legitimize them, and we should not elevate them or provide them with a platform or treat them as any type of legitimate political movement in America whatsoever. These people are vile human beings who have no place in American political discourse whatsoever, and should be shunned at every opportunity. At the same time, though, it's important especially for Republicans and conservatives, to make clear that we should lead on the issue of civil rights, and to make sure that we're forcefully advocating for the equal application of civil rights to all Americans, regardless of their race or their religion or their national origin.
Okay, very quickly, I'm going to let Michael have the last word because we only have a couple seconds left. So 10 seconds, last word.
There's absolutely nothing I disagree with what Ron said, except one thing that people keep forgetting. The president said the exact same thing. He led with that. So, I think we're ignoring the fact that the president he's being labeled a racist when, in fact, he agrees with everything that Ron just said, and I agree with wholeheartedly.
He also said that
all he's saying is, let's not forget that we can't meet this with violence. That's not how we defeat this disgusting ideology.
I'm going to extend this by another 30 seconds. Do you guys both support, or what's your view on the removal of Confederate statues, since the president said that they should not be removed?
Well, in a nutshell, I think that whenever we try to change or erase our history, then we're doomed to repeat it. So I disagree.
Ron?
I think it's a decision of people in the respective states and communities. If they want to have a statue or a war memorial of someone in their community, that should be their decision, and that decision should be made locally.
But it should be democratic. It should be a democratic position.
Ron Naring and Michael Grimm, thank you both for coming in. We appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
A strange sight in the mountains of China.
And we'll tell you what created these eerie-looking clouds.
And a deadline is looming over whether or not sanctuary cities get to keep federal funds if they refuse to enforce federal laws to catch undocumented immigrants. Details next.